All right, everybody. Fine artistry versus artistic expression, part 4.
Former child star and genuine will. Hear him sing, watch him dance, he'll put you under his spell. Behind the scenes, Uncle John or buddy time with his kids. Everybody around the world, tell what time it is.
It's time to spend some time with Rick.
Jump back, kiss myself.
It's time to spend some time with Rick.
What time is it? What time is it? What time is it?
Welcome back to me, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Rick Segall, and if you are completely unfamiliar with me, yes, I used to be Little Ricky on the Partridge Family. Yes, I used to know Michael Jackson, and yes, I work with the Bearded Bastard on our stupid reactions. If you don't know who the Bearded Bastard is, I can't help you. Today we're getting into part 4 of Fine Artistry versus Artistic Expression. If you have not seen the other parts to this, they're on my channel. I'll have some links at the end of this video. And if you're absolutely brand new to my channel, hi there. Click subscribe, click like, comment, and by all means, share this with everyone you know and love. We have been going over my vision, my explanation of fine artistry, and differentiate it. I'm going to do a quick review and then get into the other elements of the Stool, which are other elements of fine artistry. I can't tell you how much I love the amount of comments that you guys are putting on here, and not just the quantity of comments, but the quality of the comments. If you haven't looked at the comments yourself, there's some really wonderful discussions and elaborations going on from some incredibly smart, stupid babies. And we've so far covered this. And we have used as our object lesson this. The object lesson thus far has covered the 4 legs of the stool, which are, as you can see behind me, the leg of creation, something uniquely put together, the leg of distinction and perfection, the leg of virtues, and the leg of humanity, which came from the definition I had put together in a single sentence that was derived from the original Greek and Latin and then French definition of what fine artistry is. And that was something uniquely put together, marked by distinction and perfection, whose end is suited for the virtues of humanity. And you'll notice by the word virtue, I put the word integrity, because if you remember from the last video, I had explained that when we were talking about virtue in the realm of fine artistry as it pertained to this leg of the stool, what we were talking about was the lasting quality, that it had the capacity beyond a moral framework. We're going to get into the morality of things soon, but it was primarily the integrity that you would talk about in terms of something having integrity. A piece of wood having integrity, meaning it's not warped, and it has lasting value. It has the capacity to stand the test of time, as they often say, with great works of art. Today, we are going into the deeper dimensions of the stool. That sounds pretty gross. All stools, in addition to having the legs, are going to have a couple of other elements. They're going to have a framework that supports, which we're going to get into in a second, the framework. It doesn't always look the same, but they almost always have it. You can see it's an interconnected support that is going between the legs. It also has the seat or the pedestal. This particular stool is functioning somewhat more as a chair that has a back. I'm not necessarily interested in that. I wish I had a stool that didn't have the back, but for lack of high budget material, this is what you get. And today we're going to talk about the framework, and we're going to talk about the pedestal or the seat. And then in the final video, part 5, I'm going to talk about the foundation upon which this sits in order for it to be stable and functioning, and then ultimately what it's all about. What is this for? Who or what sits on top of this. The framework. If you look at the stool, again, and you notice that interlacing framework that connects between the legs, that framework is intended to give the entire stool something extra. It's an internal additive that enhances required stability and guarantees superior durability. You don't need to have that, but why do you think it's put in there by stool manufacturers and chair manufacturers? Because what it does is it causes those legs that might otherwise do this over time. It gives them a stability and a connectivity between one another that makes them different and superior to weaker, lesser stools. Hence, in my analogy, I believe that fine artistry versus just straight artistic expression in some way, the differentiation between the two has to do with all of these factors combined, and one of them is this framework. What is this framework, you ask? I believe that this framework is giftedness. Let me explain, and thank you for that honk in the horn out in the parking lot. I appreciate that for the affirmation. You might think that the leg of distinction and perfection incorporates this component of the stool, but that's not the case, and here's why. There are many tap dancers who can perform a time step flawlessly, but their time steps aren't as exhilarating as the time steps of a Fred Astaire or a Gene Kelly. There are many actors who can memorize lines and understand the teachings of Stella Adler or Meisner, but their monologues are not as engrossing as the monologues of, say, Sir Anthony Hopkins or Meryl Streep. There are many violinists and technical brilliance, but their artistry pales in comparison to the artistry of, say, an Itzhak Perlman. And the list can go on and on and on and on and on. Giftedness, like the framework in a stool, is that something extra. It's an internal additive that causes one's work to stand out and last among the others for ages to come. I hope that makes sense. And that is simply the difference between fine artistry and artistic expression. I don't think I need to belabor the point, and I think you'd agree that there is a level of giftedness that comes into play. I've used him as an example before. One of the many reasons I consider Prabhu to be a fine artist is because he hits all of the elements. And in particular, it's clear. There's a giftedness which transcends training. It's giftedness. Next is the seat or the pedestal. And that is the artist themselves. Fine artistry requires an artist. We hadn't gotten to that yet. I think it was presupposed that I was talking about that, but it's not presupposed, and I'm going to explain. All fine artistry requires an artist. What is theatrical jazz without the arms and legs of Jack Cole or Bob Fosse? What is impressionism without the perceptions and touches of Monet or Renoir? What is acting without the emotions and imaginations of Stanislavski or Meisner? I could go on and on the list for all of these examples. What is Baroque music without the expressions and embellishments of Bach or Vivaldi? The artist is the pedestal, and just as stools function best when their pedestals, which provide the seat, have a fixed attachment to the legs that provide the opportunity for their elevations, so do fine artists function best when their artistry has a fixed attachment to the legs and the framework and provides the opportunity for their artistry. That's it in a nutshell. The next video I'm going to do is going to be about the foundation and what it is all of this is supposed to uphold for all the world to see. Many of you are probably formulating ideas as to what that is, but as a point of recap for you, we have the components of a stool that are supposed to be an analogy and an object lesson, giving you an understanding of fine artistry compared to artistic expression. And to recap artistic expression, guys, artistic expression is any expressiveness that has artistry at its core. I gave the example of Micah when he was 5, writing a drawing and putting it on the refrigerator. Any endeavor of the human being to create art is artistic expression, but not all artistic expression qualifies to be fine artistry. That's what we're talking about. And there are certain requirements for something to be considered fine artistry at another level above artistic expression. And many of you asked some beautiful questions, asking things along the lines of, can an athlete be a fine artist? The answer to that question is absolutely. And here's why. Remember I talked about the differentiation between terms that I knew was bringing some confusion? I was talking about the fine arts, which are the disciplines of acting, dance, music, and visual artistry. The fine arts. Then there is fine art that people often refer to in the realm of painting. But then there's fine artistry, which is what we've been talking about. And fine artistry, this qualifies. I mean, if you think about the stool and everything I've talked about thus far, it works. Let's use an athlete, for example, okay? You think about your favorite athlete, okay? What's done by that athlete? Is it creative? You betcha. Is it marked by distinction and perfection? You betcha. I remember when Michael Jordan hit 7 3-pointers in a row and he turned to the press table and went, it has a lasting integrity to it, right? It's never forgotten. Why do you think they have Hall of Fames for baseball and football and basketball and a bunch of other sports? And it's for all of us to experience together. And as we just discussed, that framework that holds together is the giftedness. So absolutely, chefs have a level of fine artistry. What they do is art. So fine artistry doesn't necessarily have to fall under the fine arts. It just so happens that what we talk about on the channel and what we react to and what my passions are about and what my life is about, because other than what I do on YouTube, I'm about being an actor. The primary amount of things I'll talk about contextually are going to be in the realm of the fine arts. Many people call them the performing arts, which goes anything that's done on stage to perform in front of an audience. I hope this makes sense. But absolutely, what I'm giving is a definition for fine artistry, and it isn't relegated solely to the world of the fine arts. I can think of, I've watched somebody building a home and the speed at which they can do that. I've seen people who can put together pizza boxes for to-go pizza, and they do it in such a way that is clearly a level of fine artistry. They're creating something they're in the process of creating something, they're doing something, right? And they're doing it with a level of distinction and perfection that supersedes what they see other people do. And they're doing it with a level of lasting value. You're never gonna forget that. And they're doing it for all of us to see. And there's definitively not just a level of distinction and perfection that came from their practice, but that framework of giftedness is probably in there as well, because there may be other people who would try to do it as fast as they can, and maybe they don't have the hand-eye coordination gift that they do. Does that make sense? I really hope that clears this up for you guys and helps you understand that what we're talking about in and of itself is this aspect of elevated performance. Next time, we're going to finish the stool and give you the definition for the foundation upon which the stool sits, and ultimately what it is the stool is meant to elevate. And I hope you find that to be as engaging and enlightening as you have said it is in the comments. And would you be so kind as, again, to share this with people you know and love, and even with a few people that you hate. And click subscribe if you're not subscribed to my channel yet. Hit like if you liked this. Comment so I can reply back to you and we can be involved in this conversation together, and I can answer as many of your questions as possible. And in a moment, I'm gonna sing that silly song, and you'll see a couple of links that you could go to that are the other lessons in this series, as well as if you would like to support my channel, there'll be the link to Patreon that you can click and go to over there. And I thank you for your time today. I love you guys. I will see you next time. Stay stupid.
If you like this video and want some more, subscribe right now and you'll adore the time you spend with me and your extended family. And if generosity turns you on, just click that link to Patreon and give until your money's gone and no one else will be.
Rick Segall, an institution of silliness for everyone but Corbin's mom.